Hey everybody, this is Christian, and today I'm finally publishing my new website. Remember, the one that we built from simple Markdown files using the Hugo static website builder in one of my recent videos. Of course, when it comes to publishing static websites, there are tons of ways how you could do this. You could just upload this to a basic web server, something like Nginx or Apache, but I wanted to go a step further and use the new serverless compute platform made by Cloudflare called Workers. Using this doesn't just make sure my web content gets delivered incredibly fast, it also allows me to automate the entire building and publishing process, all integrated directly into my self-hosted GitLab instance. It's absolutely insane. So I hope I got you interested. Let's see how this all works. Now, before we jump in, I quickly want to show you my absolute favorite tool for remote access that is called TwinGate, the sponsor of today's video. TwinGate is always my first choice when I need to log into my home lab servers over SSH or access my administrative tools, because it is a secure, fast and simple solution that just works like magic. It's what we call ZTNA in tech, a zero trust network access platform that establishes secure connections between your devices, where every connection always have to be verified and authorized, so otherwise TwinGate won't let the request go through. And this technology even works through NAT devices and firewalls without any port forwarding or firewall exception required, so you can just securely log into your devices no matter where you are or where you are connecting from. If you would like to try it out, then check out my tutorials on how to install TwinGate in your network and how to integrate it into your Docker, Kubernetes, or even DevOps environment by using Terraform. It is super cool and completely free with up to 5 users and connects to 10 different remote networks. So start making your network more secure and accessible with TwinGate. Of course, I'll drop you a link to their website in the description down below. Alright, so now let's get started, and first of all, let's take a look at my new website and talk about the building process. So here we got the Git repository that I have created on my self-hosted GitLab instance. By the way, this contains the final source code of my Hugo website that I want to publish. So when you're watching this video right now, my new website should already be online. I mean, unless I'm running into some unforeseen problems during the recording. But yeah, you know me guys, I'm always kind of optimistic when it comes to deploying to production. So everything that I need to host or upload to the Cloudflare's infrastructure has to be first built from the source code using the Hugo static website builder. And everything that I need for that is, again, in this Git repository. So here you can see the basic configuration files for the Blowfish Hugo theme that I've used to design my website. Remember, in my first video about Hugo, we've gone through all the details. So if you're interested in the first part, then check it out. I'll put it to you in the description. And here you can also see the content of my website. All the video tutorials or pages that I want to publish are existing in simple Markdown files that the Hugo static website framework will use to create the final website code from. I've tried to add as much as I can from my recent YouTube videos that I've done in the last few months, so that my new website isn't empty in the beginning. And certainly I'm also thinking about adding more content to it, or even automating the content creation process for new videos and pages as well. I haven't really decided how exactly I'm going to do this. Maybe I could integrate this into my project management platform with Notion. So we'll see how that's working. I'll keep you updated about it. And by the way, one thing that I have not shown you in the previous video, which I probably should have done, is in the Hugo tutorial, we only used the Hugo server command, which is great for developing on my local device and testing how the final website would look like. But of course, when we want to host the website, we cannot do it this way. We first of all need to build the final HTML, CSS and JavaScript files and only upload these files to the web server. In our case, the Cloudflare Workers infrastructure. We don't need the whole source code there. To build the website with the Hugo static framework, you just simply run the Hugo command without the server flag. This is really super easy. And this will create all the necessary files and put them into the public folder. That's basically all we need to upload somewhere. But of course, as promised, we'll also take a look how to automate this building process in Cloudflare Workers. Because as you know, guys, I'm lazy, and whenever I change something on my website, I don't want to always rebuild it and upload it myself. Yeah, so that's why I added this public folder and also resource folder to the .gitignore file and not included in the repository. But yeah, I hope this gives you a good understanding of the project and how I'm planning to build the website. Now, when it comes to hosting the final code, as I said again in the intro, you have many options. And I have decided to use Cloudflare Workers because I'm already using Cloudflare for many of my projects. Yeah, it's my primary public DNS provider. I'm using it for the DNS challenge when I'm creating TLS certificates. And I'm also doing the one or another project with Cloudflare Zero Trust. If some of you might ask now why I'm using the more complex server architecture Cloudflare Workers instead of Cloudflare Pages, which is pretty well known and you find many tutorials on the internet on Cloudflare Pages. Well, the main reason is that once I tried to do that, Cloudflare started recommending using Workers instead of Pages for new projects, which probably implies that they're going to replace Pages somewhere in the future. And of course, I didn't want to use a technology that is not recommended by the vendor anymore. And also, I really like that Cloudflare Workers has a free plan for personal use and simple applications that includes a bunch of free requests and computing resources. Of course, if you need more, you can still upgrade to the paid plans. But I think for a simple static website like mine, the free plan in Cloudflare Workers should be totally sufficient and a great way to do it. I get global CDN performance, automatic scaling, and the ability to easily customize my site's behavior without managing the actual servers. So we are not spinning up virtual machines or containers, or we are not managing any complex infrastructure. Let just Cloudflare handle all that stuff that they are really good at. So this just works. And again, that is for free. So what would be a better choice? Now let's get started and let's talk about how we actually get my website source code onto Cloudflare Workers. The most streamlined way to do this is through a Git integration. Yeah, Cloudflare Workers can automatically build and deploy your web project whenever you push changes to a Git repository, which really fits well into my preferred workflow. However, there is a bit of a limitation in Cloudflare Workers because currently there is only a direct integration into GitHub or GitLab.com existing, the hosted platforms. That means if you're like me running your own self-hosted GitLab instance, you cannot directly connect it to Cloudflare Workers. But don't worry, there's a simple workaround. We can use what's called a mirrored repository in GitLab. So in addition to the Git repository on my self-hosted GitLab platform, I've also created a repository with the same name on the public platform GitLab.com, of course, as a private repository. And then I just need to configure a mirrored repository that pushes any changes from my local Git repo to the public Git repo. As you can see, the public repository on GitLab.com is currently empty. So we first of all need to configure the mirroring, go to settings, repository, and then there is a section mirroring repositories. Here you can add a new repository where you want to push the changes. By the way, the mirror direction currently is grayed out. In the paid versions of GitLab, you can also pull any changes from a public one to your local one. But anyways, we just need to push the mirror direction anyway, so I'm totally fine with that. So first of all, we need to input the remote repository URL, and that can be done by either using HTTP or SSH or Git. So depending on how you want to authenticate, if you want to authenticate using a username and password, then use HTTPS. You can also use SSH keys. So that way you just have to switch the authentication method to SSH public key. And then you will need to download the public key that is generated on your local GitLab platform, upload the public key to gitlab.com, and then you should also be able to authenticate. But I'm using username and password here. I think that's a bit easier. So we just grab the URL, clone with HTTPS, and put that in here. And then I'm also going to enable mirror-only protected branches. So that makes sure that I'm only pushing changes to the main branch and not for every sub-branch. So for example, when I'm creating a new video tutorial, I would create a new branch on my local GitLab instance. And when I'm done with all the content changes, then I would merge it into the main branch, which then only gets reflected. I don't need all the local branches where I'm managing the content on the public one. So I really just need the protected main branch to build the website from. All right, so that's basically it. And then you should see the settings were successfully updated. You can also check the last update attempt and when it was successful. So currently there is no change to the main branch, so it doesn't try to upload it, but we can force it with an update now. Then you can test if everything works. And yeah, so here you can see the last update attempt was 10 seconds ago and the last successful update was just now. So when we switch from my local GitLab instance to the public one and refresh the page, you should see all the content. Yeah, there it is. So you can see it's basically the same stuff that is on my local GitLab instance, now reflected on the public one. So now that we have prepared the Git repositories and the synchronization between my self-hosted GitLab instance and the public GitLab.com platform is working, we can start creating all the necessary files for Cloudflare Workers to build and publish the website. So first of all, let me log into Cloudflare. By the way, if you're not registered on Cloudflare yet, you can just register for free. Again, Cloudflare Workers has a free plan, so just try it out. And then in the main menu of the Cloudflare dashboard, you just go to Compute Workers. So here we can create a new Cloudflare worker. Let's click on Create. And of course, we don't want to start from scratch or use a template. We want to import our existing Git repository. You first of all need to connect your GitHub or GitLab account, depending on what platform you want to use, and then select your repository that you want to import into Cloudflare Workers. So now that takes you to the next menu where you can give this a project name. I'm just going to give it the name Christian Lemper website, just like the repository. Okay, an underscore is for whatever reason not allowed, so I'm just going to remove it. I think that's fine. So now we can specify how we want to build and deploy our project. As I said, instead of building the website locally with the Hugo CLI tools on my machine and then pushing the public folder with the final website to the Git repository, I'd like to automate this process using a build script in Wrangler. Wrangler is the CLI tool that Cloudflare Workers is using for building and deploying. So this way we keep the Git repository clean and only maintain the source code of the website, while our build script will always execute the Hugo commands to build the final version of the website and publishes it. To have a bit more flexibility and control, because we also need to download the theme files and so on, I want to create a separate build script and use that in the Wrangler command. So the default deploy command will always look for a specific configuration file in the main repository that is called wrangler.toml. This file contains all the essential information about the worker, such as names around the bindings and any custom configuration options as well, and also what it should execute. So let's first of all create this configuration file in the Git repository before we deploy the website. Okay, let's first of all open this website in VS Code and let's start creating the wrangler.toml file in here. Wrangler.toml. And let's first start with the name. So I want to use the same name as I've used in the Cloudflare's platform. So Christian Lemper website. Then we have to set a compatibility date. So that should usually be the date of today. And then we want to customize the build section. So the build section, here we can invoke a specific command. And that command here should just run a simple shell script that I just want to call build.sh. And then I also want to specify the assets here. Of course, you should only publish the final code of the website, which will, when you executed the Hugo command, again, will be located in the public folder in the main repository. And you can also specify a not found handling. So when somebody opens a website or location that is not existing, he will get back a 404 page from Cloudflare Workers. Now we can start creating the build script. And I found a template that I just want to copy and paste here. Don't worry, we'll go through everything here so you will better understand what's happening here. So first of all, I want to specify the Hugo version that I've used to test my website locally with. So when I do automated updates, maybe with Renovate or so, I might need to adjust this a little, but I will figure it out later. For now, it's fine to use a specific version to make sure my website looks exactly the way how I've tested it on my local machine. I will also export the time zone that I'm using. And then the next commands are necessary to install the Hugo CLI tools into the Cloudflare's worker building machine. So whenever there's a new building process happening, Wrangler will automatically start a new temporary container, or I don't really know how Cloudflare is doing that internally, but I suppose they just start a containerized project using the Wrangler CLI tools that will just go through the build script execution. And of course, it doesn't by default have the Hugo tools installed. That's why we need to download it from the Git repository first, using the specific version that we've defined above. Then it's using a tarball archive that we first of all need to extract. And then we copy everything that was extracted onto the build home directory. So this is the temporary file system in the Cloudflare's worker building process that we want to use. We, of course, then delete the license, the README file, and the tarball image. We don't need that anymore. Verify the installation. So you need these 3 tools to build the Hugo website. You need Go, you need Hugo, and Node.js. So we'll make sure these tools are all existing. The next step is to clone the Blobfish theme. And the way I'm doing this is by using a Git submodule. I can show you how this looks when we go back to the local Git repository and go to the code. When we go into the themes directory, you can see this is not really existing locally. This is just a reference to the Blowfish repository on GitHub. So what we're doing with these commands here is we're basically cloning the Blowfish theme from the address that is specified here to the themes directory. And then we start building the website. I probably also have to explain these 2 flags here. So the GC parameter is the garbage collection. So this is necessary to remove all files that are no longer needed. This helps to keep the build directory clean and prevents any old or unnecessary files to be included. And the minify flags are there to enable a minification of the site's assets. So like the CSS, JavaScript, and HTML files, the minification compresses them a little, reducing the size of the files and potentially improving the page load time as well. So that's why I would recommend doing this. So then this is everything we are defining in a main function. Of course, we are also need to execute this function. That's what's happening in this command here. So just execute main. First of all, we are also setting a strict error handling environment. So this command seems to be best practice because it prevents silent failures and makes the script more reliable and maintainable. So that makes sure that we see all the errors that might be happening in the main function. All right, so that's basically everything that we need. We need the wrangler.toml file that defines our assets folder and the basic configuration, and also makes sure that we are running the build.sh script before publishing the website. That again will go through all these functions here, installing the Hugo CLI tools, verifying everything, downloading the theme, and then building the final website. That should be located in the public folder, and that's what we then publish to Cloudflare Workers by defining the assets directory. All right, so that's everything that we need. Of course, we need to push this to the public Git repository. Of course, this is just my local Git repository, but because we have configured the mirror repository, all the changes, whenever I push them, should be reflected to the public one as well. So let's test how this works. Wrangler config and build script. Let's commit this. So now we got everything prepared. Let's click on continue and deploy and see what's happening. So this might just take a few seconds until it redirects us. So here you can see the status of the building and deploying process and how long it's taking to initialize the environment. Then it's cloning the Git repository, installing all the necessary tools, and then finally, once that is all complete, run the deployment script. Here you can see I ran into an error, permission denied. Oh, I forgot to do one thing because the build script is missing the execution permissions. So we need to fix this on my local machine. Of course, add the changes and push it. So then the Wrangler build script in Cloudflare Workers should have the correct permissions to execute this script. Let's click on retry build so you can see when everything goes wrong. Just check the log files, fix the error and retry it. All right, so now this build process was successful. When you go through the logs, you can see all the steps that we have defined in the build.sh script, installing the Hugo tools, verifying installations, cloning the Blowfish theme, building the website, and so on. So that is the output that you should see from the Hugo Static Website Builder framework. And then the Wrangler CLI tools are publishing everything correctly to the Cloudflare Workers infrastructure. By the way, here in the main dashboard, you can also drill into all the details like requests, input errors, compute resource utilization. I really like this integrated monitoring dashboard. And of course, you can also go into the deployment tabs. And here you can see the active deployment and a version history. So this means whenever something goes wrong during the build process or you're deploying some changes that do not work like you expected it, you can always revert back to an older version. And in the settings menu, you can adjust the configuration. So here you can see the domains and routes. That, by the way, we also need to change in a second. And when we click on this View the Worker button on the top right corner, this takes us to the final website. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's super snappy and fast when you go to any of the pages that I've created. There's just one more thing that I want to do, because as you can see here, this of course is not the final domain that I want to use. This is hosted on a randomly generated subdomain of the Cloudflare's worker domain. Of course, I want to use my real domain christianlemper.de instead. So let's go back to the settings menu where we can make adjustments to the domains and routes. And here we can add a custom domain. Ideally something that you're managing in Cloudflare as well, because then Cloudflare can automatically add a DNS record and provision a new TLS certificate to enable HTTPS for your website. Of course, when you add your custom domain, it might take a few hours until this is published on all the DNS servers on the internet. But once that is complete, you should be able to open the website using your real custom domain. Okay, perfect. So I think I got everything in place. Yeah, I just want to show you one thing that might be pretty cool, and that is how I update this website. So how can I make any changes? Because technically, we just need to create a new pull request on my local Git repository on the self-hosted instance that automatically should be mirrored to the public one, and that again should trigger a new build command in the Cloudflare Workers to update the content. Let's see if everything works. I'm really excited about this. So let's return to VS Code. So for example, let's create a new video that I need to update anyway. So this is the Grafana alloy tutorial. I think I haven't added this to the website. I want to create the index.md. Again, I've explained this in the first Hugo tutorial. It's super simple. Of course, I need to fill in the title of the video, adjust the tags, and in here I need to add the link to my YouTube video. Unfortunately, it's still not published when I'm recording this video, so I cannot really add the final video ID here. I will just leave the placeholder in for now. But the description I can copy from my Notion project management. All right, so that's everything we need. Then I just need to add the thumbnail. So this is just a simple JPEG image that I will put into this folder here. So that's it. All right. And yeah, so that's basically it. I can test how this will look like on my local device when I just execute the Hugo server command. So that's what I always would do first before I push the changes into a new branch. There is a new video. I later need to adjust the date and so on, but I think for now it's totally fine. I would create a new branch called Video Grafana Alloy, commit this in a new branch. And then on my self-hosted GitLab instance, I have that new branch here pushed. I can create a merge request. And in that merge request, I can still make some adjustments, test everything. So this is now merging all the changes into the main branch. And because they should be mirrored to the public repository, so here we should see a new build process. There you can see it's already in progress. Let's click on View Build. And then all the changes should also be updated on my final website. Let's wait a little and then test if that's working as well. All right, so yep, that's complete now. So let's refresh this page and there it is. There is the change. Alright, so that's basically everything you need to know to deploy a static website that was created by the Hugo static website framework, or maybe some other tools, to the Cloudflare serverless platform Workers. When you're finished watching this video, you should find all the details and the links on my new website christianlemper.de, so definitely check it out. I'll put your link in the description, so then you can see my live architecture that we just deployed together. To be honest, I'm really proud of this, and I will definitely look further into content automation. I think that's the next topic we'll definitely cover in the future. Just give me a little more time to get my head around it. But in the meanwhile, if you are up for more tutorials for IT pros and tech nerds, then it would be great if you consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a member of my YouTube channel. This is really so helpful, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, I'm gonna catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.